Like everything is backwards. Jesus, coffee, repeat. That's what we're doing this morning. We'll be continuing talking about our overhead squat. And I know that might have been a lot for you last time, so check that video out. We'll be breaking it down in pieces. Today we're going to talk about lower back pain. Don't be shy, Billy. Come on. So pain, lower back pain. What is it? It's in your lower back, right? So we're talking about maybe you had some pain after doing the last video. Maybe it didn't hurt right away, or maybe you had sharp pain or discomfort while trying to do this overhead squat position. Or maybe the next few days it felt sore, it's still lingering, it's just weak. I got a little something myself going on here, so we'll talk about what's happening there, but let's do our rant first. We're gonna do our rant on the box. Today you can join me for the rant. Get a kettlebell, coffee down, time to get serious. 29 pounds, don't pick it up like that, right? I'm just gonna go overhead for a hold, and let's rant about something. Gotta do both arms though, right? Just try to get that elbow locked out. I'm in the corner of the bell here. Thumb, pointer finger in the corner of the bell, pressing towards the ceiling. And let's just breathe. I want to rant about people who wake up and they blame everything on their bed. Like, oh, it must be my bed, it's my pillow, it's my mattress. They're always complaining and blaming these things like the mattress and their pillow, never their own bodies or how they're moving. I'm like, are you strength training? Because what's happening when you're sleeping is you have these short hypertonic muscles, and guess what? When you're unconscious, they want to be short and hypertonic. So you're having this tug of war inside your body. The short muscle wants to stay short. So yes, it's distorting things. We have these chains of distortion, these patterned muscles. Weakness isn't just one muscle, it's chains of muscles. In foundation training, we're always talking about these anterior spiral chain coming from the front of the body, the posterior chain, and how all these imbalances work. So yeah, it's just damaging tissue throughout the night. And it's been coming on for a long, long time. So people are thinking they just slept funny. Oh, go to the chiropractor, it's going to be a quick little fix and I'll be good to go. No, this has been a degenerative pattern for a long, long time. Maybe you'll get some relief with the chiropractor. That's even worse because that's inhibiting you. It's enabling you to continue not training. That's the worst part. Let's switch to the other side. My rant is giving out before my arms. I should have done something harder. Press nice and tall. Lengthen. So our goal with the overhead squat is to find out what's wrong with our body even before there's a problem. If you can't do the overhead squat, you can see like I got a shoulder mobility issue. I'm having trouble locking out. It's showing I do a lot of internal rotation, tight lats all day for what I do. A lot of people have similar problems to me because they're sitting at a desk or just doing similar types of work, always rounded over top of something. We don't get those arms overhead enough. Maybe you got even good hip mobility, but you're lacking that shoulder mobility. Today it's going to be more about the hip, talking about the low back. So we got a stability and a mobility issue. Billy, get over here. We got a Billy issue. So if we're moving too much from the low back, too much extension, too much flexion, not enough flexion from the hips when we're doing the squat, then yeah, we're going to develop some pain here. And that's probably been coming on for a long time. A lot of these injuries just don't happen. So when we're training and we feel bad after training, don't let that discourage you. Keep working on it. This is all good diagnostic tools to help get better in the long run. All right, rant over. Now I like that one over the squat today. So with lower back some pain, sometimes we're going deep squat. We are going to get some flexion in that low back. So if there's an injury there, we don't want to overstretch that. We might have noticed if you did have some low back pain, like, yo, Dr. Klein holding that weight overhead, maybe my low back feel better. What's going on there? It's a little thing called load tolerance. You're forced to suddenly push your legs into the ground to help drive that weight overhead. Everything's getting stacked with your center of gravity, suddenly your low back starts to feel better because you're actually taking pressure out of it. We talked a little about head carrying last time. I didn't really demonstrate. One day I want to get into there. I don't want to scare you off with head carrying. Maybe a little bit today. We'll have some fun with it. I'm just putting these overhead or on your shoulders. Your body is forced to lift up. Lengthen that low back and engage. Engage that spiral chain we're talking about. Also, if you're a health professional and you ever want to come work out with me one of these Tuesday mornings, I plan on this being a thing for a while, or even if you're a coach, you're a personal trainer, you're a chiropractor, you want to help people get moving better, join me. Let's talk about it. Let's network. Let's figure out how we can help people together. I'm just one dude, and we need an army to fix these people. All right? Even just to encourage people. Even if you just like foundation training and kettlebells, and you want to know more, and you want to share your story, I'll have you on here. We'll start a little show. So you don't need a band for this. It's just supporting this idea of, we call it in foundation training, our decompression stance, right? But low tolerance for just lifting. You got a barbell on your shoulders, you're lifting up against it, your feet are forced to push into the ground. That's helping lengthen your spine. A lot of people they think, oh, I need to be stretched out. They don't think about this, when you talk about this tug of war when you're sleeping, we can break that down by having our own tug of war. Big tug of war on the posterior chain, lengthening the back of the body, engaging muscles that are weak, shortening them, stretching muscles that are hypertonic and shortened, bringing balance so the joints are happy, your nervous system's happy, everything's happy, you live longer, you live better. So we're gonna step into this band. It's a big old monster band, it has to be kind of heavy to do this. And I'm just gonna lift this up and not drop it on my toes. That's the plan. So just hooking, and you could flip this, just messing around with this. You notice that if I got it here, it's nice. It pulls down on my pelvis. Getting the bones here. Where can I leave you, Billy? Just right here. It's pulling down. There's a concept in foundation training called anchoring, where we're rotating the hips and getting the hip flexors to work. That anterior spiral chain. It's helping pull that sacrum bone down towards the floor. So now I got a 35-pound kettlebell pulling me down a little bit. We're just gonna do some breathing. So if you know you're measuring stick hands, or you can just do what we did last time, that breath. If you don't have the band, you can just wrap in here, lace the fingers together. The goal here is to breathe. The wide of the ribs, back to the ribs. Your hands are going to prevent this thrusting sensation. So now we kind of got the bell doing the anchoring for us. So if you've never done that before, this little kettlebell is pulling down on the pelvis, forcing my body to press up against it. That's starting to open up the lower back. Now I just have to work on engaging the core, lifting my head, putting tension on that posterior chain. You should feel this from the back of the skull, all the way down to the tailbone. Locking those fingers together. I'm holding tight on those ribs, this transverse abdominis muscle. You keep it tight. Getting a full exhale is tough for a lot of people. Inhale, they're pretty good at. The air is helping you. It's helping expanding the rib cage. Breathing that air slowly out while maintaining the expansion isn't so easy. And that's where you'll start to feel this hip flexor really working, because it runs and attaches to the diaphragm. Hip flexor attaches to the spine, but also a little tendon inserting into the diaphragm, so it helps anchor it down, hold it down when we're breathing. So that's important to engage our hip flexors when we're breathing. We do this in a lot of different positions. You don't have to do this with a heavy weight here. Just pretend like you've got a heavy weight if you don't have a band and a kettlebell. Let's do a few more breaths. Long exhale. Now sometimes I do notice breathing out through my nose. Always inhale through the nose, slows the breath down. Breathing out through the nose also slows it down. If you're having trouble with that, just like a leaking canister, go out through the mouth. You let all the air out quickly, you just collapse. We want to maintain and lengthen. So if you're familiar with foundation training, you're probably wondering, hey, can you do a founder with that kettlebell? Yes, you can. It's actually fun, and it helps us teach a concept here. So we'll set up for our founder. We'll start with our breath. So now I'm going to do the measuring stick hands. Same concept, elbows wide, inflating, 360 degrees expansion, inflate that whole rib cage, especially down the low back. We want that lumbar spine lengthened, locked, stiff. We're trying to get more motion in the mid-back. More motion in the hips themselves, more motion in the thoracic spine. Do a little bit of a hinge. Now you gotta be a little bit wider for this. So my goal is to, let's just squat for now. Squat, get that belt down, keep that length. So now it's touching the ground. I'm gonna bring my hands out in the measuring stick hands, or out in the sphere of tension. Let the hips turn in as I lift my butt behind me. That's engaging all those erector muscles that attach to the sacrum, your multifidus, those transversus spinalis muscles. I'm pulling the bend out of my knees. I'm pulling my hips behind me like I'm reaching to touch a wall behind me. Hands are doing the opposite. I'm pressing away. My neck is tightening in the front. Pulling my chin back so I sound kind of funny. So now that little bit of weight, I have to push my pelvis back, but also up. This helps. Gives you a little bit of feedback to keep you from doing the butt tuck during the founder. Feet are still gripping the ground pretty hard. I can sink into that a little bit more. And I like to also do a little bit of a lateral hinge just to test out the hips. So laterally, I'll bend the left knee a little bit, pull that left hip behind me, straighten the right knee. Trying to find a stretch here in the glute, hamstring, a little bit of the IT band as we go farther. Because one hip tends to be able to flex a little bit more than the other. So this weight can kind of guide you, slow you down, so you can find the stiffness. So as I go right, I can feel more binding. That ankle itself doesn't want to move as much. That right hip, bigger stretch. Even the left, just straightening out that left, getting that stretch on that. So those adductors, that medial hamstring, oh, it's tighter. We're getting that right hip flexion. That iliopsoas has to work a lot more here. Good, back to the center. You want to press the hips forward. And I like that. So that kettlebell, if you're having trouble with your foundation training, try that concept out. It might help you. So the goal is really not to make it harder, it's to teach you an idea. That's the problem with foundation training. It's a lot of concepts. Sometimes just a little bit of feedback. Weight pulling down on you reminds you, oh, you gotta press up. Right? So that's why strength training is good sometimes. Just helps us. So now let's do some core work. Just feel. Woo. Those glutes are stretched out. Got that hip flexor working. Hips should be working nice. Now we're gonna work on some core stability. And there's a lot of different ways you can do these moves. Let's just plank and hold. Now when I like to plank, I like to breathe. So we're pressing hard into the ground. Just like with the sphere of tension. We're not just pressing that sphere forward. I'm always pressing my body away from the sphere. Just like we were planking, we want to not just hold ourselves. That last little bit of that inch really works that serratus anterior. So it's like a push-up plus, helps pull the shoulder blades away from each other, allows you to breathe now in between those shoulder blades. So let's do that. Just get into your plank. I like to get my neck steady before I lift my knees. Get the whole spine nice, locked and lengthened. Press really hard. Then lift the knees, and you should notice an instant shake. Now if I just drop down, rest of my joints, I can probably hold here all day. But if I lock, press up, it's gonna be much tougher. We'll have instant shake. Let's take a couple of big breaths. I'll go for 5. So make it worth it. 3. Long exhale. Good. Transition into a side plank. Get the arm up if you can. Leg up. That just forces you to really press into the ground with the bottom leg. Good. So, challenges that balance out pretty good. All right, switch it up. Find which side is tougher. I think they both can be tough today. Good. We'll do one last plank here, just to round it out. I think the left was tougher on my hips. It was tough to tell because my right wrist is a little wonky today. Sometimes you got stuff like that going on, it's hard to tell. Just keep practicing. You'll figure out which side is tougher. Press the ground away hard. Pull your head and neck away from the ground as much as you can. Good. Let's do some kneeling work. Now, maybe don't do this, and you probably don't have the band anyways, but we could apply that idea to placing weight on the head. Well, this is 35, so you definitely don't want to start with something heavy if you are. But the kneeling founder is a good position to test this out because we're pushing our toes, pushing our weight a little bit more into the knees, so we don't have a lot of weight in the toes in the kneeling position. Make a couple breaths, just feel that out. We're lengthening the back of the neck. So I'm going to add a bit of angle. Coming forward. You feel like, oh, I'm going to fall forward. So if I place that weight here, it's going to force me to drive the back of my head up, force my knees to push into the ground harder, challenge those muscles that encase the spine. So let's just take the band. Try to get it near the back of the head. Let's lose the glasses there. Internally rotating the hips, pressing up tall. This hurts, don't do it. But you might notice, even if you have neck pain, this might instantly take the pain away. Make sure you're tightening that stomach down. You don't want to be hyperextending to do this. Keep your stomach tight. Going into a low sphere of tension might help you with that. You're pressing the sphere away from your abs. That's going to help your hip flexor and abs turn on even more. I'm feeling it. I even notice I have to round my mid back a little bit to get better hip flexor and transverse abdominis engagement, because the ribs really want to rust. So I have to round a little bit. Pull the shoulders down so the knees can press harder into the ground. Then I can scoop up. Then think about lengthening the neck last. Good. So, just a concept, just an idea. If it hurts, don't do it, stop immediately. But you might notice, wow, it feels good. Take some pressure off. Whole goal is put weight down on you, low tolerance again. Driving up. Lengthen, 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 lengthen. I like doing it on the knees. It takes the knees out of the equation, essentially, and your ankles. You don't have to worry about stabilizing those. Especially if you've got ankle issues like me. All right. Let's really blast the core out now. Give our body a little break. for some renegade rows. These are great for core stability, great on that iliopsoas, that hip flexor, because we're really gonna have to stabilize. We're taking that plank idea, adding a row to it while we're holding down on these kettlebells. And yeah, we'll get to the overhead squat today. We're always gonna do it last just to test ourselves out. We'll do a few with the band first. I think I actually have a band today. It's okay, we'll skip it. So, let's just do 5 each side if we can here. Gotta be pretty wide with the feet. And we're just gonna row one bell. So press in hard. Good. That's the other side. Good. Another good row. If that's too tough for you, let's do this from the side. It's the bent over row. Also good for the low back. You might feel here, as I flex like that, a little bit of pain. I'll talk about what's going on there. So maybe it's similar with you. Pulling those hips way back. Getting those kettlebells underneath me. Spine nice and long. Really having to go into a good founder, almost hinge the hips back. Don't round too much. If anything, keep the low back stiff. Let the rounding happen from your mid back. Of those. And on the other side. At the top, I do a little press with my right, pull with my left. I do upload these videos to YouTube and I invert them so left is left and right is right. It's backwards probably in this position. But a little press. And we're trying to get that rotation to happen, not in the low back. Breathing to lengthen, lock that low back. Trying to get the rotation in the thoracic spine. Hands to the shin, just lengthen out. Right there, actually got some, just breathing, pressing, a release. We're doing all this rotation in the thoracic spine. It's gonna help release. So, and maybe I can demonstrate this. So when I squat, due to my ankle, other things, decent on my way down when the hips are working. If I go lower, and I'll exaggerate this, I tend to drop off to the left. Now normally I'm about there, but you can see it's scooting to the left, the bottom, when we let that pelvis tuck. So partly that's because the right hip partly doesn't flex as much because the knee can't go over the ankle due to some arthritic restrictions. So we talked about the ankle last time. I'll show you another move to get that, I'm gonna work on it anyways. But that left, you might have to flip that again in your mind. This side is tucking more than the other side. So it might be, a tight QL or something on the right too that you need to work on. It's not always just blaming one side. This is the injured side because it's going too far into motion. So if it keeps going too far, when we're squatting, we're getting this damaging stretch in the thoracolumbar fascia, or even into the joints themselves. They're flexing the sacroiliac joint. These lumbars are creating too much motion to help with the hips. Not just that side, but both sides aren't hinging and flexing through the full motion as they should. So it forces the pelvis to do too much. And we get damage if we do that over and over and over again. There's a lot of other imbalances too, like maybe this hamstring's tighter. We're gonna have to look at a lot of different things. That's why you should see somebody like me. I can help you set you on the right path. But maybe that concept and what I showed there when I squatted helps you out. All right, out of the way, Billy. So that little lateral hinge we did, I'll demonstrate from this. You see how this can work. So I'm hinging, maybe even there, I'm starting to go off to one side. If we hinge and I force myself to fire into that right hip, push that right hip back even more, and just press into that, just like we're doing with the kettlebell. Pull that hip back, reach, reach, reach. That should bring the pelvis in the opposite direction. You might even notice going the other way, maybe a little easier. But just play around with it. Listen to what you feel. Play with both. Getting each hip to hinge, back and forth. There's a move called the Cossack squat if you want to do it with the kettlebell. It's pretty similar. That kettlebell up. Hinge, bend one knee. Normally I can go pretty far on the left. I switch that to the right. Just can't get quite as deep. Those lateral side motions, pretty good. Or just hold it right there in the goblet position. Feel like extending a little bit. Tighten that stomach down. Oh, don't let your spine do the work. Spend all this time doing that breathing and bracing. Let's use it. Good. All right, so do a little ankle move for you. Let's get our heaviest one here. So I guess I gotta do a shout out to Joe Daniels Kettlebell. You can find him on YouTube, big channel. He does a move that you can check out called the somersault squat. Some of that scary you're not actually doing a somersault. I just found out it's very nice because for me I can't do the full range of motion. So he says put some 2x4s or some weight plates underneath your heels, but I liked doing it with the band. Right over that talus joint. So that's the joint that gets locked up. I can see that knee just doesn't want to go any farther. So that band is going to help mobilize, break up that restriction on the front of that ankle. So I want a nice big stretch on this green band. I'm going to grab the kettlebell both hands like this. I'm just squatting as far as I can. And then lock that in. So my forearms are essentially right on my hip flexors as they go into my hip. So he can almost get that kettlebell in this position all the way to the ground. But that's about all I can go. So we're just straightening the knees out. Kind of like we're doing a foundation training where finding the hamstring tension. This is going to burn your outer quads. Vastus lateralis. I can feel that ankle restriction. Maybe get a little more stretch on the band. Oh, it burns. Okay, good. And then we'll try it with the 2x4s like he suggested. That's also how we did our overhead squat last time. For those of you with the bad ankles, as we don't have that mobility, our spine has to really arch too much and lose that control in the hip flexors. And that can cause some pain there too. So now we should be able to almost do this properly. Locking those forearms in over the hips. Now I can actually reach down, grab this sucker, I can go for that full range of motion. But even there, I noticed at the bottom, I feel that low back, so my butt started tucking. So breathe, brace. Don't let your spine do the motion. Sometimes even a heavier weight can help protect you. It's going to slow you down. Keep the motion in the hips. That's better. Oh, terrible. That's terrible. That's so good. All right. So we've done some good core warm up. Might not notice an instant fix in your low back. Okay, that's not the goal here. We got damage that's probably coming on for a while. We don't want to exacerbate it with a lot of overhead squats, but let's do a few. We'll finish up with that. Give you a lot of good little tools. Let's just do some doubles today. And we'll keep it on these 2x4s. There's one more move I want to go over. Well, let's do a few of these to warm up. Forgot about it. So we'll clean. Press. Let's do a few of those. I've already warmed up the hips. The shoulders a little bit. And we'll definitely talk about shoulder mobility soon. Lock those overhead. Tight core. Let's get 10. Awesome. Whew. All right. So, tight hamstring can definitely pull that pelvis into posterior pelvic tilt like we talked about. So here's a little stretch I like. Don't need the kettlebell for this one. I'll even start with that left leg open. Probably feel that stretch right there. Tighten the core, come up, work through a few of those. And switch it. Test the other side. A few more of those, and then we'll skip right to this position. And here I'm opening up, opening up. There's a couple different ways to do this. These backups you can see. Sometimes if you just set up into this, you won't notice as much tension, so go back into this little sit up. Gets that hip work. It's a big stretch. Adductor region, inner thigh. Opening up. Now there's a kettlebell shift. We could do it lengthening the spine. Opening up, squeezing that glute on the left. If this hurts your low back, just lengthen even more. Maybe you need 2 of these guys. Here's another way to get it. That nice and open up. Take this right one overhead, press into that. So we'll go fingertips, fist, ooh, palm. Let's do that again. Fist, fingertips, fingertips, fist, palm. Oh, get that glute to squeeze, stretch. Oh, good. Let's try that on the other side just to compare. I already know which side is tighter. Let's do the same thing though. So now left knee's bent, right is open. Oh, sorry. Other way, right knee's open. There we go. Good feeling. Not nearly as bad. Big lat stretch though, on the left, which is probably your right. But listen to the hip. That's why we do things on both sides. Just go over things I don't even know. It's fun to straighten out there. Good. Let's hit 10 more. Not gonna be a hero today. Keep the weight light. Keep the heels on the blocks. Coffee. Little chalk for grip. Just get a little sweaty. Chalk is good for that. Finish up with some renegade rows. We'll call it a day. To make it harder, we'll do 10 total, but I want to switch each time. Let's keep going. This got easier. I like that little switch though. And that little rotation. I think planking on one side. There's probably more of a plank row. I think renegade row is actually when you switch. If you care about the semantics, or fact check me. All right, off to work. Hope you like that. Should feel, oh, nice burn. Should feel more stable. Overhead squats hurting. Don't push it. Keep testing it, even at the end of every workout. Just do one. Do it with a band. Feel it out. See how far you can get down. Want to get those hips. Sometimes they're really like opening up. Just reach. Be more like a curtsy squat. Just reach. You'll notice your arms start dropping, your back starts arching. Just fight against all those things. Reach behind you. See how low you can go. Open up. Length. I know I went over some foundation training today, but definitely go to their site. Learn from them. Learn from the best. Have a wonderful day. Hang loose.